there, viewer. If you like these videos, don't forget to subscribe to join the Subscribers Army.
Hello, and welcome back, Subscribers and new viewers, to another Sunday speed paint and story time. In the background, I'm going to be doing a bunch of drawings of my character Maru, just some silly doodles, while I talk about most of the pets that I've had throughout my lifetime. Now, a brief disclaimer right at the start: there is a mention of some distressing themes and some blood and death of family pets. Now, I'm going to put timestamps down below for these stories, but there are a lot of happy memories that I wanted to share of these pets that I've had throughout my lifetime. They are like family to me, and I loved each and every single one of them as best I could throughout their lifetimes, and I feel like it's important, whether you're a new pet owner or a long-time pet owner who's had many pets, and it's difficult, whether you're bringing home a puppy that you're raising, or whether you're looking after an older cat or bird that someone wasn't able to look after themselves and had to rehome. It is important, and responsibility, whether it's financial or being there for them as a responsible pet parent. I think it's important to share these stories, not only for me to be able to remember all of their lives and preserve them, but also to share to others my journey and what I've experienced firsthand, the mistakes that I've learned as I was a young pet parent all the way up to now, and I think that this might be something for me to share with you all so you learn a bit more about me from when I was younger to how I am now, and some of the things that I wish that I could have changed, but I'm glad to an extent that I learned from these stories and journeys that I'd been with through these family pets. So the earliest memory that I have of one of the family pets that my family had was a black Labrador. Her name was Midnight, and I was about 8 years old when we had her. I came home from school every day. I would sit with her on the couch, and we would go play fetch in the backyard. We would just run around, do walks, but she was also around, I want to say, 11 to 12 years old. She was already very old, but still had quite a bit of energy to her. However, about a year later, when I turned 10, or just before I turned 10, one of my family members started to have miniature pinscher puppies available, and there was a run to the litter that they weren't able to sell, and they asked my relatives if we could bring them in and I could adopt them and look after them. With some back and forth and me knowing the responsibility that I would be getting my hands full with, I had said I would do my best as 10-year-old me could. But of course I was also really excited because I loved animals, and all we've ever had in the household besides our family lab Midnight was a bunch of goldfish, and I already knew about death. I already knew that it was going to be a lot of responsibility on my shoulders as Uno, that's what I named them, got older. So I did my best as a new young pet owner, and every day I would get up, I would potty train them, give them food, give them water, playtime, everything, and I had done really well. Around the time when I was 10, almost 11 years old, Midnight, due to her back legs, they were having so much trouble. I remember that one of my family members had to take them to the vet, and they did not return with her. When I was explained that she had to be put to sleep because she was not eating, she was not able to stand on her own, and they tried to explain it to me the best they could, but now I understand that in her age it would have been cruel to keep her around where she wasn't able to even eat or walk. It was just hurting her, and we wanted to have her at peace and at ease, and she had lived a long and happy life. Around 11 years old, I had gotten a gerbil. However, said gerbil, a relative, mistook for a rat, and because it was that relative's house, it was their rules, and they said had to take them back. Now, for some context, said gerbil had been purchased from a pet store, and this pet store has a terrible reputation. It is known to be really bad for having already sick pets. The people that work there are not filled with a lot of knowledge, and sometimes are purposefully to misinform some people, and some of the items that they sell are not up to code and standard for what people should actually have these pets in. As an example, do not put your betta fish in those stereotypical tiny little goldfish tanks. You know, the ones with the little wavy tops on them that look like a little decoration that you would probably put flowers in. Fish are not for display. They are pets and family and deserve the right amount of space. They need a very specific amount of gallons to the size of the fish. Do your research before you get anything, even a fish. They are not for display. So when we brought the gerbil back to the pet place, I was very worried that they were going to put them to sleep because they could have been seen as a problem pet because I had returned them so quickly. I explained through sobbing tears, as my 11-year-old self said, that they can be rehomed. And to this day, I'm hoping that they went to a lovely home. A few days later, of all things, the relative allowed me to adopt a hamster, so we got a hamster, and I named her Emerald. She was very skittish, and I didn't know why until I realized she was blind. Now, there wasn't anything wrong with this, and even I was trying to be so patient with her, but she just wouldn't let me hold her, so unfortunately, all I could really do was have her run around her very large hamster enclosure, and only every now and again attempt to bring her out so that she could get some proper handling. But a couple of months later, I had asked my dad how one of my relatives was doing with taking care of some birds, and they said that they had a couple of parakeets we could look at, not that we were going to bring them home. Somehow I think little 11-year-old me convinced them to let me have them because I wasn't able to handle my hamster, and I had already been doing such a good job of taking care of Uno, my miniature pinscher. When I brought home the blue budgie, my relative wasn't too happy about it, but said that it was fine as long as I could take care of all three of the pets that I had in good health and everything. So after several months to, I think, a year or two, I did everything that I could where I was responsible about washing my hands before and after I interacted with each of my animals, but Emerald was in her cage, and it was one of those ones that had those bars where you couldn't really even fit a finger through, and it had plastic at the bottom to keep all of the bedding so that they could bury themselves, and for some reason they were up on the second level of this. It was a large hamster enclosure. They were up on the second layer, and Sparky was out of their cage, and I was practicing flying from cage to my hand. And this is where the problem was. 11-year-old me, even though I was very attentive and I was trying to focus on Sparky, I took my eyes off of Emerald because they were in their cage for a split second. Sparky landed on top of Emerald's cage, so I wasn't fully aware of where Emerald was. When I looked over to see where Sparky landed, Emerald had already grabbed hold of Sparky's tongue. I do not know exactly why Sparky, maybe out of curiosity, poked their head down, so I called for my dad's assistance, and I tried to get them free. We had to separate them, and the first thing I did, and I don't know why somehow I was more responsible than my family members, was I wanted to take Sparky to a vet or to have them looked at, but my relatives insisted Sparky would be fine, and Emerald looked fine. Emerald went back into her little bed. Sparky was just shaking, but seemed okay until I put Sparky back in their enclosure for the night to go to sleep, and they were just sitting on the bottom of the cage, and it was such a red flag, and I was so worried. I was crying all night, and I was hoping that they would be fine when I woke up. I woke up, and they were stiff as a board, passed away on the bottom of the cage. And a few weeks or months later, Emerald had also passed away. Whether it was due to the same thing that happened to Sparky because they had cross contact, or if there was maybe a blood infection, I don't know what it was. Both of them before this were perfectly healthy, and I did know that Emerald was blind, so perhaps Emerald got scared, smelled Sparky, and as soon as Sparky put their beak down, she just attacked. It was something that 11-year-old me couldn't be put at full fault for because it was just the wrong place, wrong time, and split-second decisions. And I'm still upset at myself for this, and it took me a few years before I felt mature enough to look after another set of birds, because what happened from then forward was when I was about 14 or 15 years old, I went to a bird rescue place where there was these two really nice gentlemen who explained that their dad has a bird sanctuary, which will come in important later, but I got Sparky and Sunshine, two little parakeets, which if you guys have seen my videos before from a few years back, you can even hear them, and you'll see little pop-ups of the cartoony versions of them that I've made. I think I even made a small video where you can see them. At this time, I had been taking care of them for a while. And I know it wasn't easy, but they were such bundles of joy. I remember hearing them chirping every morning, getting to move them from their cage to the open space of the bedroom, having hanging branches from the ceiling they could sit on, fresh water, giving them proper treatment for their nails and their beak, and giving them the right diets and healthy treats that they could enjoy every day. When I moved out from my relative's place to my roommate's place, I had also adopted another lovebird, because in my mind, well, I was being very serious about this, and I knew that when I made the decision to move cross-country to be with my now husband, I wanted to bring my dog Uno. I knew that that was probably going to require me to get a lot of veterinary, either like a doggy passport or whatever needed to be done, but I also didn't really know the full rules of international stuff for birds. And I knew that my two birds, Sparky and Sunshine, because of their ages at the time, I believe that they were maybe 11 or 12 years old, which is very old for them, but not too old. I didn't want to risk them having heart attacks. I didn't want to risk their ears getting damaged through a 10-hour flight or anything like that. So I brought them back to the gentleman who I had adopted them from, explained the situation. They said because their dad is retired, they had the bird sanctuary at home, they would be happy to take them. Right up until the last few months, I tried so hard to find all of the stuff that I needed for my bird Tiki, but I couldn't find if there was any limitations, because around this time it was the end of 2020 and the cough regulations for this were starting to lift in 2021, and I realized that I had no knowledge, because I was a first-time flyer, especially international, on my own, and I was already trying to figure out how to bring my dog with me. And so I had Tiki sent back to the lady that I adopted her from and explained the situation, and she said that she would personally take care of her. If not, she knew someone who would, rather than selling her again, because it wouldn't be too fair for them. And she even explained to me that it's understandable sometimes some people, over time, some situations happen. You have to be prepared for the unexpected and know that you did your best. And she was really nice and sweet to me, and that was something that was reassuring, is I wasn't just leaving them, I wasn't just abandoning any of these pets. I wanted to ensure wherever they were, if they weren't under my care, they were with someone who would care for them. And between all of these, around the age of 19 to 22, I had gotten a bearded dragon. I named them Zeffy, and they were super sweet. And this was when I was around the time at my roommate's place, and I had always asked permission before making any decisions. And they said that was fine, so I went to the dreaded pet store of all places because I couldn't find any for rescue or adopt. They did, however, have a section that stated they had some for adoption that previous owners had returned for one reason or the other. It was just because this bearded dragon was of older age, and I don't fully believe that now because of what happened to them. After several months of having them, I did everything I could for heating and cooling and water and everything that I could for their enclosure, and when I was handling them outside, I was very careful. But one day, it was the afternoon, it was about 7 p.m. at night, and I started to notice that their beard section, their scales, all the way down to their stomach had turned black. To this day, I do not know what this was or is called, and I don't know if anyone else can help me in the comments, but I now know, through personal experience, I am not a reptile person, nor would I ever want to adopt any more reptiles just because of the amount of intense care that is required for them. I also learned this through adopting a small semi-aquatic turtle, because around this time I was living with my roommates and their family who had some ducks, and I didn't know if they were also going to commit to changing their backyard to having a bit of a water space. Instead, they just had one of those pools that would be adequate for them. I do know that after a while they did have to take them to a rehoming duck sanctuary, because there was like this bird rescue place that we were able to take them to, because my roommate at the time had worked for them through part-time just volunteering. But I, with the turtle that I got semi-aquatic, didn't realize just how big that they were going to get, and also because of, again, as mentioned, the special paperwork that would have possibly been required, I was not able to bring them with me. I asked a close friend of mine who took them in, and I do know that I did hear from them not that long ago that I think that the turtle did pass away, partially either due to health complications, again, of where I got them from, similar to what happened with my bearded dragon. I genuinely am concerned with how the pet store sometimes straight up lies or gives wrong information to the workers there, possibly to tell other people without them really knowing. And I do think that there are some people who work there that do not follow these rules, and I commend them for that, because there were some people who I think were told to say one thing and they went against that, and they were just telling the truth. There was some people, when I went back there before I moved, and I asked them, I said, how much did they know about the animals that were there? And they said that a lot of the departments that they are in, they're given these lines to read out, and it's really harsh to say this, but their job was to sell and meet a quota of making sure that these pet parents were buying hamsters or parakeets or others on a regular enough basis. And it's really sad because these are family, not just pets for decoration or for an inexperienced child. I am thankful that my family waited until I was at least about 10 to 12 years old, but I still feel like even then I was still young and could have done with more experience of learning. And I'm not really sure how to explain the hands-on experience, but it is important for understanding the concept of life to death with taking care of an animal, both financially and general care responsibility, but also just knowing the amount of time and energy, and they're not toys, they're not decoration. Another thing that I did want to mention, as I have saved this story for last, is Uno. I had Uno since I was about 10 years old, and he was such a sweetheart. I brought him everywhere with me. He was such a sweetheart because not only would he be there every time I'd come home from school, but when I was doing part-time college and part-time work, and just before flying to the UK, he had passed away when I was at my roommate's house. Now, I want to give a disclaimer here. Feel free to skip this part because it is not easy, nor is it easy for me to recount the story. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. I was with my roommate, and I woke up to the sound of Uno coughing. I moved him from his bed over to the floor so that I could get him some water, and he crawled underneath the bed. I asked for my roommate to see if there was any 24/7 emergency vets in the area close by. We had a hard time finding any. Well, my roommate was looking, and she was on the phone in the kitchen. I went into the bathroom to get some better lighting and to see if perhaps he needed me to bring him to the tub. I didn't know if he needed some fresh air. I didn't know what. But when I held him over the tub, because I couldn't see if it was water coming from his mouth, it was blood dripping from his mouth. He was coughing, and I remember I had caught him because I set him down on the ground, and all 4 of his legs collapsed underneath him, and when I picked him up, he was coughing and shaking and his eyes were closed. I ran to my roommate and told her to just get in the car and we would look at the directions on my phone as we were going, because we found a place, and my roommate was trying to console me. And I think in that moment, whether it was in the bathroom when he fell or in my arms on the way to the car, subconsciously I think I knew he passed away. I knew something was wrong, and he was already a 12 to 13-year-old miniature pinscher, and he was reaching old age. I knew the day would come, but I didn't think I'd have to say goodbye to him so soon. And I remember also when we got to the vets and I explained the situation, they took me into one of the rooms where I now know these are the rooms that they take people to console them when a pet has passed or when that talk has to come. The vet lady walked in and she gave me a box of tissues, and I couldn't stop crying. It took me 10 whole minutes with my roommate sitting there crying as I held him before I said it was okay to take him back. And they asked me if I wanted him cremated or not, and I said no. They gave me a coffin box for him, and I said I would be burying him in the family home next to a few of the other pets that we had buried. And I remember that this next part was extra stressful for me because a particular relative of mine was just as close to Uno as I was, but the way that this happened I felt could have been handled better. Bear in mind, I was 20 years old at the time, and I understood very well, and I was coping with the situation as best I could with the help of my roommate. I asked for a moment alone to talk with my relatives, and one relative insisted on seeing to know for sure that it was them in there. They reached for the box and they tried to tear open the tape, and I said, do not disrespect him. I want to bury him peacefully and let him rest, especially after what I went through, because I didn't even have a chance to explain the whole story of what I went through. I just explained that I just got back from the vet and he had passed away. And so after we buried them, and after I believe we put some fresh, some plants next to them, sort of like, one of the things I like to do to honor a pet is either to plant something with them to rebirth type of sort of symbolism, or just in general a memorial display for them. And we had done that, and I explained the situation, and we were, after a few months, able to move forward. After some time had passed, and I was on the phone with my now husband, messaging him, explaining what happened, he understood, and he said that things would be okay in time, and to take as much time for the grieving process as I needed. And I knew that it wasn't going to be easy, and still to this day, whenever I think about him, it does bring me to tears, because he was such a good dog, and he was by my side from when I was 10 years old all the way up to about 20, 21 years old. And he brought me so much joy through stressful moments, and I really thought that he would be with me for longer than that, but I appreciated every day with him because he was just such a bundle of joy. And muscle memory was the hardest part for those first few weeks. I woke up expecting to hear his little collar. I reached for his container, which had been moved, to give him food and water, and it's hard. It really is. And although time keeps moving forward, and I wish I could turn back the clock just to see them one more time, I'm so happy to have had all of the pets that I did a part of my life, because honestly, I know that I gave them the best life possible, but they also gave me so many wonderful memories, and I don't know what I would have done without them a part of my life. And in a way, I remember every single bath that I gave Uno, every walk that we did, every time that he would make me laugh and smile, and every time he was there for me when I was crying. Uno was really like a family member to me, and I'm so happy when I look back on those memories, because I know that I'm also going to be making new memories and get to share these stories with everyone, because now me and my husband and our 2 little chihuahuas that we have, I think we're going to have a wonderful life, and who knows what other pets will bring into our family for the future, but we have 2 adorable little chihuahuas, a girl named Tiff and a boy named Ace, and Ace is a 12-week-old little puppy who is a new addition to our family, and he's such a bundle of energy and a joy, and I'm so happy to get to share these stories with you, and I hope in the near future I'll get to share some more stories about Tiff and Ace, and our wacky little adventures, and perhaps do some drawings of them. And if you guys have any pet stories that you'd like to share in the comments down below, I would love to hear them. Thanks for watching. Till next time, here's some playlists of all of my videos. If you'd like to see more and support this channel, click the link tree down below. Patreons and the Fennec Fox tier get access to sketches. Arctic Foxes get shoutouts at the end of my videos and access to all of my projects early. Red Foxes get the opportunity to be featured as a background character or a commission instead. And for free, just subscribe to join the Subscriber Squad for weekly videos. Stay possum, and I'll see you later.